So we're gonna move on to another thing that makes my blood boil, and that is the legislation of trans people out of existence for, I don't know, the last couple of years. Conservatives have waged a war on trans women in women's sports, of trans people, trans women in women's sports. This is a subject that I take very personally, that I am very invested in fighting against for two reasons. The first being that trans people do not deserve to be targeted, to be directly targeted in legislation. They do not deserve to draw the ire of Republicans, of conservative commentators who don't want them to exist. These people want to exist in their own bodies. They want to exist in a comfortable life. They want to be themselves. They want to be the person that they were born as. And I fully want them to be able to achieve that. I want them to live happy, fulfilling lives. I also hold athletics very dearly to my heart. I love watching sports. I cover basketball on another channel. But beyond that, I think that sports and athletics in general, it is such a great thing for young people to involve themselves in. Athletics builds life skills that you may or may not be able to develop in other instances. It teaches resiliency. It teaches discipline. It teaches self-improvement. If you're a basketball player and you can't shoot, you have the fire within you to learn how to shoot, to put the time in. If you're a pitcher trying to add a curveball to your repertoire, you're going to put that work in. It teaches you to be cooperative. It teaches you to play. It teaches you to exist in a team setting, which translates very nicely to the real world. So many jobs require you to to work with other people and to reach that common goal. It also teaches you that if you're good at this sport, you can go very far. You might not go to the NBA, but maybe if you're good enough, you go to a D3 school, a D2 school, you wind up playing overseas. But even that, even if you don't go professional, if you're good enough at a high school level to earn a scholarship, whether it's academic or athletic, you can go to a good school and you can get a good education and potentially change the outlook of not only your prospects, but your family's prospects. Sports are very important for young people who want to develop, you know, these different expansions of character. It is also a very diverse environment. You meet a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. You travel to a lot of different places. It's just a really great avenue for kids. It could also inspire confidence, right? If you're, you know, if you have insecurities about yourself, but you know that when you get on the basketball court or on the football field or on the soccer pitch, if anyone from Europe is tuning into this, and you know that you're one of the best players on this in this game, like that's gonna instill something in you. So it bothers me because if I can't even say it bothers me, it enrages me actually. These women, these girls, they want to continue their love of sports. And you're saying you can't do that. And this is also quite near and dear to me because I live on Long Island. I was born and grew up in Nassau County. I only recently moved out of Nassau County. And the Nassau County executive, Bruce Blakeman, signed one of these bills outlawing trans women from participating in sports. It's always trans women as well. It's never trans men. They're just trying to be normal kids, right? They just want to play sports. They want to play basketball. They want to play tennis. They want to swim. And Republicans are actively trying to kill more of these, to kill more trans people. They have the highest rate of suicide among any group. In certain states, like they're not even able to get care. They're not able to get gender affirming care. Like I'm not even talking about like surgery or anything. There's been like a handful of these surgeries done on minors. It's like you can count on one hand, I believe. But just like going on certain medications, which are reversible, even though instances like that are exceedingly rare and conservatives always hyperfixate on them because they're fucking freaks. But I cannot stand for this type of discrimination. It's targeted discrimination. And if we were a civilized country, there would be repercussions for people who introduce legislation like this. There wouldn't be this wouldn't be able to pass the House. And as we saw, pulling on like the hyperfixation of trans people, it does not win elections for Republicans. Like campaigning on trans issues is not a winning issue. The only reason it is successful is that the trans community is linked to all of the ills that plague this country, which is just not true. It's trans people and immigrants that have been demonized by Donald Trump and the Republican Party as the reason why they won't raise the minimum wage, as the reason why his administration won't provide paid family leave, is the reason why his administration outsourced 200,000 jobs. And that's not the case. These folks are just trying to live, they're trying to live normal, fulfilling lives. Let's go ahead and look at this article, courtesy of CBS. The House on Tuesday passed a Republican measure banning transgender girls and women. Oh, it's of course, it's just trans women. It's not even trans men. So again, the hyperfixation of trans women, it's weird, dude. It's weird. We are very close to Republicans, Jim Jordan, wanting Mark Wayne Mullen is another freak who would probably go for this. Like they're gonna have penis inspection day, right? The first day of sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, ninth grade. Not that it fucking matters, right? These Congress people, they're probably gonna want to do the genital inspections of these children. The House on Tuesday passed a Republican measure banning transgender girls and women from competing on school sports teams that match their gender identity after the party leaned into the issue during the 2024 campaign. The bill, known as the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, would amend Title IX, the federal law banning sex discrimination in schools, to recognize a person's, quote, sex as, quote, based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. I'm gonna fucking scream. I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. This is the conflation of sex and gender is so fucking tired. It's just like fundamentally misunderstanding the science because these elected officials have 3 IQ points combined and they just choose not to recognize that. Schools will allow, quote, a person whose sex is male to participate in an athletic program or activity that is designated for women or girls, risk losing federal funding. Oh, schools who allow, quote, a person whose sex is male to participate in women's sports risk losing federal funding. It passed the House with a 218 to 206 voting in favor and 1 voting present. 2 Democrats, Reps Henry Cuellar and Vicente Gonzalez, the craziest of the Democrats, joined all Republicans who supported the bill. Democratic Republican Don Davis of North Carolina voted present. Fuck that guy also, by the way, for not voting no. Quote, an overwhelming majority of Americans believe that men don't belong in women's sports and that we must allow common sense to prevail, said Republican Greg Steube of Florida, who introduced the bill, said during floor debate ahead of the vote. According to the CDC, about 3% of high school students identify as transgender. Polling has found in recent years a lack of support for transgender athletes participating on sports teams that match their gender identity, and about half of states limit transgender population. I'm going to make something very clear here. Last year, there were more than 8 million high school athletes 8 million students participated in a sport with their high school. 3% of high school students. If we do a Google search, how many high school students are in America? 17 million. These are students enrolled in both private and public schools. In 2021, there were 15 million students enrolled in public schools. You are looking at the at the smallest percentage of any group in any high school. And you're specifically legislating against them. Not only that, keep in mind that it is an even smaller percentage of these students who are participating in sports. Estimates say that there are probably no more than 100 trans athletes across the country. It doesn't happen. And when it does happen, it is hyper fixated on. It's the old adage, you hear about something on the news because it happens so infrequently. When there is a trans athlete who they don't even have to win, they just have to exist, because there was the whole conversation surrounding Leah Thomas because she won one event and then got walked in every other event. And they talked about her for fucking months. We're looking at barely 100 student athletes. The justification is always that there's genetic advantages of being a man in a women's sport. They're taking scholarships away from these kids. Parents, do you know the fucking odds of your child getting an athletic scholarship? You will know by the time that child is 10 whether or not they're getting an athletic scholarship. Whether or not they're getting an athletic scholarship. It's just one of those things, man. Some students are gifted athletes, others are not. I would wager you're more likely to get a full academic ride than a full athletic ride to any university. And if you're that good, shout out to you. I hope you utilize that talent well. A trans athlete is not taking a scholarship away from your child. They're not taking spots in they're not taking spots on college rosters away from your child. The odds of your child playing Division 1 sports is exceedingly low. They're probably more likely to be an astronaut. It's like 1% of students that play collegiately in Division 1. House Republicans passed the bill in 2023 with no Democratic support. The Senate, which was then controlled by Democrats, did not take it up. House Republicans vowed to prioritize the issue again this year after GOP campaign spent tens of millions of dollars on ads last year that characterized the issue as a threat to girls and women in sports. Republicans in Congress are more of a threat to women and to girls than trans women, right? Who's a bigger threat to young girls? A trans woman or the president-elect of the United States who was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein? Or Elon Musk, who is pictured with Ghislaine Maxwell? It's projection. It's projection. It always has been. It always will be. It's a mix of projection and just flat out disdain for trans people, because these people are so narrow-minded. These legislators are so narrow-minded that they cannot imagine a world being different from what they've perceived. During floor debate, Republicans argued that these athletes have biological advantages that are unfair and unsafe for other girls and women. Democrats opposed to the measure said it opens the door to intrusive genital examinations of girls. We're already seeing examples of harassment and questioning of girls who may not conform to stereotypical feminine roles, said Democratic Rep. Suzanne Bonamici of Oregon. Republicans are not only dumb in regards to social issues, they're dumb in their assessment of athletics. And I think a lot of them are either unathletic or are mad that they were never athletic as some of the other people that they knew, because the assertion that trans women have advantages is stupid, but it also doesn't take into account the fact that there are athletes in general. There are male athletes participating in male athletic leagues that have genetic advantages over the men that they're competing against. There are women in athletic leagues competing against women who have genetic advantages over their competition. That is the whole point of athletics, right? There are kids who are 6'7" in 8th grade. LeBron James at 15 was playing against Michael Jordan. Look at pictures of Myles Garrett when he was in high school. There are some guys, look, Asia Wilson, Brittany Griner, who have tremendous size advantages over their competition, right? Victor Wembanyama is 7 foot fucking 5. This argument does not stand on anything because if you're going to ban trans women from participating in sports based on some genetic advantage, are you going to ban players who are taller than 6'7" from participating in the NBA? Are you going to say that if you're taller than 6'4", you can't play basketball in whatever fucking high school, in whatever conference your high school is a part of? There was an Olympic runner. I forget if she was a sprinter or long distance, but she was not allowed to participate in the Olympics because she tested high in testosterone. A biological woman who just has high testosterone. That's a genetic advantage, one that she doesn't have any control over. There are men have that same issue. Men have high testosterone. There are men who are just naturally more athletic than other men. Am I fucking like, dude, bro, I didn't even play, I saw some dudes in high school way athletic, and I knew I would never be able to compete with them. Like 6'3", doing fucking windmill dunks. That's when I knew, like, yeah, dude, this shit is not fair. Athletics are not fair. That's the point. You become a great athlete by becoming a great athlete. It is the only form of meritocracy that exists in this country, right? LeBron James was the number 1 overall pick in 2003 because he was clearly better than every other prospect in the country. He was so good in high school that he was probably the largest consensus. He was probably the biggest consensus top ranked recruit by a wide margin. It's the basis of athletics to prevent to it's just it's flimsy, man. It's flimsy. But there are a number of moderate Democrats who have expressed some concern on the issue, especially after the Democrats' 2024 election losses. It's because these people are just Republicans or they're stupid. I have no other way to explain it to you. Like, if you're a sitting Democrat and you think that if you find yourself agreeing with Republicans, you might have to do some reflection, especially on an issue like this. Maybe you're not as left-wing as you thought. Maybe you're just a Republican. One of those Democrats is Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, who voted against the ban when it came up for a vote in 2023, but since has questioned his party's messaging on transgender. Writes, quote, Democrats spend way too much time trying not to offend anyone rather than being brutally honest about the challenges many Americans face. I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a male or formerly male athlete, but as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. So what if they got ran over by a female athlete? Like, what? I don't understand the difference here. Also, what instance is your daughter getting ran over? Is she playing football? Like, dude, you're fighting this. You're fighting an imaginary ghost. You're fighting an imaginary ghost. Straight up. There are instances in combat sports where it could get very dangerous. I understand that. But it could also get dangerous for male on male combat. Or it could also get dangerous for male on male combat, female on female combat, which is why there is this thing called weight classes. There are safety measures put in place. But again, like, I think that this guy just doesn't like trans people, right? But yet he's too afraid to say that. Just say you don't like trans people, man. You like don't try to massage your ideology because you're still trying not to offend anybody, even though you're falling in line with Republicans on this issue that is completely baseless and unmerited.